Hey guys, I've been bugging some YouTube channels and myself with these questions lately. After I made a few videos about Blazor WebAssembly and I think one about Blazor Server and kind of comparing the SEO capabilities out of the box. I didn't fully explore the Blazor WebAssembly SEO capabilities, like the pre-rendering capabilities, because it seemed like kind of a stretch and I wasn't sure about the result. So I immediately went to Blazor Server and checked that one out. And then I was pleasantly surprised about the pre-rendering in here. And then it hit me that probably this pre-rendering mechanism is also possible in the Blazor WebAssembly projects. So that would make that a Blazor WebAssembly, which has a horrible SEO out of the box, would actually be able to get about as good as SEO as Blazor Server can get. That's very interesting to me, since the only reason I actually went for Blazor Server is SEO, since I was lacking that in the original Blazor WebAssembly projects. And of course, because I wanted to reuse my Blazor components that I had already made for my Blazor WebAssembly projects, I kind of want to reuse those without having to change them too much because of the hosting model. Because Blazor WebAssembly is hosted client-side and Blazor Server is hosted server-side. So this is a backend project that can access the database, but also is able to have a great user experience, provide a dynamic user interface, I mean, with great user experience, a bit like the JavaScript frameworks provide. Both of these, Blazor WebAssembly and Blazor Server, are Microsoft's single-page application solutions. I said it already, this one server-side solution, this one a client-side solution. I would say client-only site, but the pre-rendering will change that. Also, there's a bit of extra things to worry about when going for Blazor Server. That is the Signal R usage, which is known to have limits of the amount of concurrent users that can interact with your website at the same time or something. It's there's a limit probably not too many of us will hit. So it doesn't really discard Blazor Server for that reason, I would think. But that Signal R component kind of its responsibility is to communicate between the server. It's actually to communicate all the user interactions to the server, and then the server communicates back whatever computed or anything like that. So there's an extra communication handler, so to say, between the dynamic frontend and the server code. Blazor Server, then again, since it's server side, it's good for computing stuff, processes that might take a little longer, or sensitive stuff that stays on the server. Also, since it's server side, it's your browser doesn't need to download an application or anything, not the runtime or anything. So that makes Blazor Server quick and ready, so to speak. But that also makes, of course, that when you want to publish this online, have this somewhere hosted somewhere, you'll need to have an app instance, for example, app service on Azure that keeps running, since these are not just static files or anything. This actually requires a web server. But of course, then you can leverage, I'll just say something, accessing the file storage, saving files to your whatever, wherever you want in your file system. It's not ideal on Azure. I made a video about that, of course, that specific file storage feature. So it has its perks and it has its downsides, which is all those user interactions have to communicate to the backend, have to be computed, and then all that kind of things that can cause a bit of how do you say it? Delays. Not really delays. What is it? Yeah, latency was the word I was looking for. So it's not the best user experience for some type of applications, like if the user needs to paint something, that's a very niche use case, I would say. But there's some some limitations, some considerations. Also, to have this signal R communication, you should use another Azure service to handle that properly, or to handle more users and all that stuff. But I think I've said enough about Blazor Server. Maybe one more, a good use case, I would say, if let's say you want a very dynamic user interface and also access the database, show some data from the database, you can do that in one project. So kind of like front end and back end in one project. Instead of with Blazor WebAssembly, of course, you'd have to, you can't really, this is purely client side, so you can't really access the database or anything. So you should do calls over HTTP or another protocol to your API, which then fetches data from the database and all that stuff. So it might be a lot more work to have a fully functioning application with Blazor WebAssembly in that regard. So Blazor Server might be good for a small business website, a proof of concept, a minimum viable product. Of course, you need to be aware that small projects don't always stay small, but as long as you structure your code well, I don't see much of a problem with that. It's rare that you put all of your code in one project anyway, so just be aware of that. Then Blazor WebAssembly, of course, is completely client-side. I already said it, the single-page framework, single-page application framework of Microsoft. This was actually released publicly a bit later than Blazor Server. So some people say Blazor Server was kind of their first solution, their first attempt or something. And then they ultimately wanted to build Blazor WebAssembly. That's what they say. Of course, Blazor Server has great SEO capabilities because of its pre-rendering. that happens. I showed that in a previous video. Blazor WebAssembly out of the box has a very shitty SEO. Yeah, unless we try to apply the same pre-rendering in that project, which makes the Blazor WebAssembly project not entirely client-sided anymore, since you need some kind of server to serve the pre-rendered content. So that gives us an extra challenge for hosting as well, since these aren't just static files anymore. You'll have to use an app service, just like you would need for the Blazor server, for example, to keep your app up and running all the time. And as I said, maybe small business websites, Blazor server, I would say all the rest probably want to go for Blazor WebAssembly. Yeah, what I mean, yeah, dynamic web apps, progressive web apps, admin panels, dashboards, things that don't really, so the last two don't really need SEO, just need a great experience. But you need that, probably will need some kind of API to actually get access to data. Both use Razor components. So you really can just use the same components you built for Blazor WebAssembly into your Blazor server. Very easily. I also showed that in the previous video. Yeah, so the point of this video is actually the question, what is better for my use case, where I already have a web API and I already have Blazor WebAssembly components built, and components which are actually already doing the HTTP calls to the web API to show the data. I didn't intentionally do that, but I just, yeah, I have multiple apps. I have this app, I have built this app lately. I made videos about those, and then there's another app in the making which reuses some of these components. Yeah, so that's the only reason I built those HTTP calls inside of the component, which then, if I reuse those in the Blazor server, would make less sense, since the Blazor server can directly access the database. It doesn't have to go over HTTP, so I kind of would have to adjust these components just for the Blazor server project, and I'm not going to, after thinking about it, I'm not going to do it. Because I'm simply not going to go forward with Blazor server is if the pre-rendering does what I need, is provide a great SEO, more specifically great SEO for these detailed pages. What I want to achieve is if I share this link on Facebook or on anything other social media platforms, that we actually get a decent preview with an image and a title and description of this actual dog, not just from the index page like you mostly see, which, yeah, that's just not useful if you're sharing specific content. The same for these meetups. You'll want to share those with others, and they should get a decent preview of what they would click on. Also, just discoverability in Google would be nice, because I went as far as to make some slugs for this, so it would be really nice if people could just type them in and find my application. Since I built these as progressive web apps meant to be installed on a mobile device or desktop device, yeah, I kind of sacrificed the SEO for that. Just like with a native app, for example, you publish that to the store, but that has, other than this, the App Store, it has little to no discoverability. Just so the App Store does about all of the SEO for that app, and most people make an extra website to like highlight their product or their app. They built the app. That's also the approach I went for. Only I made this in Razor Pages. Razor Pages is a purely server-side way of building static websites. It's kind of it followed the MVC model. Not followed. It was like the newer version of the MVC model. Was more productive, more fun to build this, but still a very specific syntax. I couldn't use the on-click handlers. I couldn't really reuse these components on the Razor pages. So the idea was then to convert this website into a Blazor server website. So I could, because on these pages, I want to actually display the same meetups and parks and all those things without having to reinvent the components or any of that stuff. And also, yeah, have proper SEO for that content. So Blazor Server would do the trick for this use case. However, I already mentioned it. I want to reuse the components without adapting them, so without changing the way it fetches data right now over HTTP. And yeah, I want the same interactivity as with the Blazor WebAssembly client apps. I don't want to have to worry about the signal R connections or the user losing internet or something and then just seeing a loading thing or the latency or whatever, you name it. That were some things that scared me from using Blazor Server before. And now I'm stepping away from it again, I guess. Although I'm pleasantly surprised about the Blazor Server's capabilities, pre-rendering and all that stuff. But as I'm gonna say it again, since I already have an API and all that set up, I don't actually need another backend project. I don't need a project that directly accesses the database or anything like that because I have everything already wired up to do that. Okay, so the goal is to convert this website, which is currently a Blazor server website. You have to host CSHTML and actually uses the components. Let's run it maybe and let's take a look. Because it uses the components that communicate over HTTP, I have to run my API, which is in a Blazor server project shouldn't be needed actually, but let's run the Blazor website. So I have this lovely API already that's gonna provide my apps with data from the database. Let's close a few of those. I think I made my point with them. The idea kind of is if I can successfully convert this Blazor server website to a pre-rendered Blazor WebAssembly app, I'm going to also do that for my other progressive web apps. But then that's what my other questions are about. Is that possible? So am I still going to simply be able to download that and run it from my mobile device, open it or something, or will it need a constant connection to the server for that, or what's I want to check what happens and if actually the pre-rendering of the detail pages boosts the SEO. It's kind of my main concerns about that. So if that pre-rendering is compatible with progressive web apps, basically. But because normally it's just like the first serve of the index page or the page you're going to that is going to pre-render it, and from that point the actual just Blazor WebAssembly app takes over. So in that case you would be able to, I guess, just install it and just run that. I hope that works. And then of course we'll have to deploy it to Azure differently than we did before. So not as static pages, but as a running app service. And more questions around that is how scalable is that and all those, yeah, all those questions. But I had a lot of questions with Blazor Server 2 and it really surprised me in a positive way, so I hope that happens again. If you don't have any project yet, I tried adding, basically if you're working in Visual Studio, you can do new project and then pick Blazor WebAssembly, and then somewhere you can check use the hosted model, which is going to be what you need. My IDE doesn't seem to support that. So if I'm not mistaken, you can do the .NET new Blazor WASM -HO, which stands for --hosted, which is going to make two projects, a client and a server. I don't really know if I want that. I hoped it could be done in one project by just converting this server project. But let's see. Let's first run it. I had an error somewhere. Okay, I restarted my IDE. Apparently my code was just all the way on the right side, hidden. I had a double placeholder. Weird that compiler crashes for that. It's good, but it's weird. That's just a minor thing. Let's run the API, which I need for those components to do the HTTP calls. The actual Blazor server project. I'm also, so I have this lovely API which gonna provide me with good data. There's still have issues. Yeah, of course, my IntelliSense played a trick on me. Should be running now. This is Blazor Server. And if I'm not mistaken, I already have the events in here. Yeah. this is the same Blazor component as I have in here, events, so that's just the same. However, I seem to have more events than that one has. Anyway, the point is, let's see the SEO, check out the page source, which should contain the data from the meetup. So and the specific, I didn't implement them yet, I think, but they should have some specific metadata tags. So when I share that meetup over social media, the user actually sees what I'm sharing specifically. So that's pretty good, but yeah, we have this signal R WebSocket kind of thing handling our user clicks. So yeah. So I'm kind of in an odd situation. I want to transform my Blazor server project into a Blazor WebAssembly pre-rendered. However, to pre-render a WebAssembly application, you need a server project. So if you don't have any projects yet, I recommend to follow these steps to generate a new project with a hosted model, which will create you a client, which is the Blazor WebAssembly client, and a server project, which would be the Blazor Server ASP.NET Core project. Those are different types of projects, so you can't really put all into one or something. But that's not my use case. I already tried this out, and the result of running this command I didn't really like. It's basically, like I said, a stripped Blazor server project, and then for the server, and then a more or less stripped Blazor WebAssembly project for the client. But you still have to do all the steps anyway, so I don't really see what the point is of that. I didn't try to run it. Maybe it's configured in a way that if you run the server that you'll see the WebAssembly re-rendered or something, but I don't think so, since you still have to do all these steps anyway. So anyway, I'm going to start from my Blazor server project. I'm going to sacrifice this one. I'll say it again, this could perfectly have been a Blazor server project alone. So since this is just a small business website, and I do want to reuse my Blazor WebAssembly components, but that's not a problem. That's possible on Blazor server. And beyond that, I won't really do anything too crazy with that project. So Blazor server would still be a safe bet, but I'm going to first try to convert this one into a Blazor WebAssembly pre-rendered project before I attempt to do it for my actual progressive web apps. So for me, the next steps are to create a new project, a Blazor WebAssembly project, and follow these steps in the Microsoft Docs, these, to prepare it for pre-rendering. And then I would copy over all my existing Razor pages and components that are currently in this project. So these pages, the Razor pages, I would say, the host and layout will have to stay put. And also these from the shared ones. And might have to, yeah. Okay, that would be a start. And then I would have to alter my current Blazor server project to use WebAssembly pre-rendered in these host and layout pages. So instead of server pre-rendered. And I'll also have to add a project reference. Add reference to have that new, to include that new Blazor WebAssembly project. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'll have to change map to fallback page. Yeah, it should then point to, I'm not sure yet. But another question occurred, could I have my API host the Blazor WebAssembly project pre-render that? That would save me an extra app service, which costs about $5, scaled down all the way. Since these Blazor, if I'm not mistaken, these Blazor server projects are also ASP.NET Core projects, so there's not too much difference between an API and a Blazor server project. If you look at the CS proj and the program file setup. So it could be possible. It would save me an extra app service, potentially. But I am not going to do it right now. First off, it doesn't seem like a good practice. Responsibility-wise, I don't think my API should be concerned with pre-rendering front-end projects. I wouldn't know how that, I don't know yet how that would affect the load. Maybe it doesn't. And I think it's also preferred to, yeah, maybe for clarity reasons, that I have a dedicated project to do that. For example, a dedicated server project to do that. Then again, I would like to know if I could have one dedicated Blazor server project to render multiple, pre-render multiple Blazor WebAssembly apps. I think I saw that in the Microsoft Docs, but I'll have to confirm. I think this is a Microsoft Docs page about that scenario. Let's have a quick look. Seems like quite a setup. Think, yeah, it's not that easy since all the files, like app CS is going to be the same for every front end. I mean the file names. So to make a distinction there using the namespace, I guess. But also maybe these host thingies. It's not going to be an easy task, but it would save maybe some costs. Hopefully it does not hurt the experience or the performance. Anyway, let's create a new project. I'm going to call it, Blazor website SPA for single page application. Going to make it a WebAssembly app. And that's about it. You see, I don't have this Visual Studio. You have a checkbox to make it a hosted, or maybe that's an extra plugin or something to make it a hosted project. I don't have it here. So I could have done it through the command line, but I already tried it and I didn't really like the initial setup. It's actually not that hard to do, to replicate. So I'm probably gonna have to change the name of Leisure website to something else. Leisure website server or something, Leisure server or pre-render or something like that. Anyway, let's follow the steps now for this WebAssembly project to make it pre-renderable. First thing would be in the program CS. I think I have to delete both of these since the app and the head outlet are going to be pre-rendered. Just gonna comment them out for now. This HTTP client might give me some trouble in the future while pre-rendering, but let's worry about that later. Let's go back to the original documentation. I really like the Microsoft Docs. They're so good. They're that good that most YouTubers just copy the docs in their video. Yeah, don't know really what the added value there is for them, but that's their business, I guess. But it's actually what I'm doing now as well, so I shouldn't complain. Although I have a different approach, initial setup, I would say. So I'm aimlessly scrolling, delete the index from the www root. This step we already did. And then we need to add these pages to the server project, but we already have those. It says if you would create a new Blazor server project, you could copy those over if you need the template. We already have those. It's telling something about the tag helpers we need. We already have those in our server project. And then we have to start changing these files to use another namespace. I'll probably add the project reference and so forth. Let's head over to the code. I think it's safe to delete those. And I already forgot what to do. Index.html should be removed. I don't see any manifest files in here. I did create a Blazor WebAssembly project, but maybe maybe using the wizard doesn't create these progressive web app support. It should through the terminal, since it's Blazor WebAssembly PWA. Anyway, we don't really want this to be a progressive web app anyway, but I am going to test if it's possible to answer these questions. We already found a Stack Overflow thread about it, and apparently it is possible. But we'll want to know how it behaves, of course, when the user has it on his mobile device and suddenly the offline mode kicks in or something. Anyway, let's head over to the server project. I really should rename this. And I think all these files, Razor files, I should copy over to the website, to the single page of the Blazor WebAssembly one. First, I'm going to make this WebAssembly pre-rendered. Also on the layout one for the head outlet. You saw this one is for the app content, this one's for the header content. Okay. They were talking about these tag helpers, but we already have them. And here I am. Should I delete this? No. Anyway. Okay, we completed these steps already. This namespace things, not really following that. I think it will be clearer in a bit. This is all about the layout.html. Let's go take a look. Layout CSHTML. Namespace leash your website.pages. Okay. This one should. Of course, this is assuming we used that generator command. So it might be already correct in my project. Update it. In the layout.html, we update the page's namespace to the server's app pages, which is already there. That's already set for us. This is the server.pages. Okay. And then we should add the using statement to use the client project, but that's not going to work unless we add the web reference. Oops, sorry, a project reference for Leisure SPA. I think. Now we should be doing using something else, pages or just a client, just a project, probably to use the correct head outlets or something. Or just to make sure these styles are correctly, but I don't use those anyway. So let's take a look. Let's really remove them. Don't need those. I have my own. I don't need the sample data either. What else don't I need? This one I don't need. This one I'm going to replace. Server prompt, I don't need it. Nav menu, I don't need it. Main layout has its own styling, which I don't need. Let's just strip that down to body. Microsoft promises to not include all this example stuff. I have like a template to generate from without all this stuff. I understand why it's there, of course. It's good to learn and to see, but after that, I don't need that anymore. Something else. Let's take a look at the, well, I don't need those, IIS Express 72520. Okay, looks okay. So we stripped that one. See the imports. What's it saying? Nothing broke. Okay. The reason for that namespace stuff and the styling pages is probably to use the styling of the Blazor WebAssembly app to have it in the pre-rendering project. It's probably necessary to pre-render the layout, the styling and all that stuff. But we're not going to worry about that now. I'm using the style sheets from my shared Razor class library. And here, the ww root, the static files, using this content as prefix and then the namespace, then the target folder. I made a video about this. It's a really useful feature when you want to have shared styling and shared components and all that stuff. You can put them in a separate Razor class library and reference that project, of course. Okay, something else. We had to do something with the Blazor server. Let's take a look. We needed to use the WebAssembly, they said, which is weird. We're still in this layout, CSHTML. We need to include the WebAssembly one instead of the server. Okay, is that the correct spelling? Didn't change yet. Oops. Okay, let's see. This is in the host.html, saying the same things about the namespaces. Let's see. Just add that using statement. We're not actually using it, but okay. We're not using it here either, I think, or maybe for the app. Now it should target the app one of this project, I assume. What's it gonna do with? It's possible, of course, that if you generated that project, the hosted one, that the Blazor server doesn't have a app.razor. Maybe we should delete it. Oh, I'm sorry, the server has none anyway. My bad. No, we do have one. Should maybe delete that. Let me see. Nothing in the settings. I'm going to generate that project just to see whether that server project has an app.razor or not. I'm guessing it doesn't. I'm not going to do it in my current project. I'll make a, let's see, dear Blazor WASM hosted. I'm going to run that command. .NET new Blazor WASM -ho is for hosted. And then I'm just going to take a look. Then I'm going to take a look. The shared one doesn't contain much. Can kind of delete it. Yeah, well, in your case, you might want to use it, but I'm not. The server one, as I thought, does not have an app.cs and has not much in here, just an error page. Doesn't even have the. That's what I meant with. I don't really understand why they would provide a template and then say you still have to add everything. Maybe just to learn it, but or maybe the template has another use case. It's not just meant for pre-rendering. Multiple use cases, I mean, maybe. So it doesn't have much, no pages. It has a controller for some reason, just in case you would also want to build an API or something, I guess. Which, yeah, not necessarily an API, I guess MVC or Razor Pages. Not really Razor Pages. Anyway, that's probably to do other things. Just quickly going to open this with the text file. Just want to see, just similarly as creating a .NET Core, ASP.NET Core project. It does have controllers of the views, Razor Pages. That's to both support MVC, maybe not really MVC, but at least CS HTML files and Razor files. I'm guessing framework files, static files, and that's what you get out of the box. So then they say change this one to /host. This doesn't really look like a Blazor server project. It looks more like some kind of ASP.NET Core project. Basic one. So nothing special, but this gives me confidence that I can just remove this app layout from the server project and also probably the imports. Probably also the shared ones once I copy them over. Let's copy those over right now. Okay. For some reason it doesn't want to replace it. So let's delete the client one and paste in this one. I should probably adjust the namespaces if they have namespaces. Doesn't look like. That's what the imports.razor is for, of course. I can delete this folder. Gonna do the same for the pages index. I'm going to remove it and copy over these, only the Razor ones. Okay, let's see. These I might need. Maybe some of these as well. Let's see. Oh, these are already there. I have not added this reference to my shared SPA project. Shared SPA, okay. And I'll probably have to also add this shared SPA. Maybe also in here. Let's see. This is the configure services from my shared project, which is going to inject all the service files. Let me show you these service files, which are registered in the configure services under this method at shared SPA. So most of the functionality, this uses this HTTP client, so maybe I can remove it from there. Let's see. It looks like I wasn't using HTTP client in that project, and yet it works. Although if you then want to do HTTP anyway, then you might want to include it again. Okay, let's see what the hell is happening here. Okay. I'm not sure if I need the imports right now, since I'm not really going to do anything more in the Blazor Server project. That's why I created this one hosted. Let's see, we don't have an imports. And here I do wonder why not, because we need those tag helpers, I guess. But these components.web. I think we did more or less everything. This map to fallback program CS of the server project from index to hosted HTML. That's standard in a Blazor server project. This Blazor hub we probably don't need. This is the signal R stuff, I think. At server-side Blazor, don't think we need that one. It wasn't in the ASP.NET Core project. Okay, I hope. That's more or less all we had to do. Let's give it a try. Something interesting, if the client and server projects use one or more common services during pre-rendering, this is probably some HTTP calls happening on component initialization, then we need to include that in both client and server projects. But that's kind of what we did with adding that shared SPA. And then another, so now we run the server project and the hosted Blazor WebAssembly should be pre-rendered. let's first like rebuild projects and then try to run them. Let's see, I'm gonna clean and rebuild them. Rebuild. And it's giving me an error. Conflicting assets with the same target path. Favicon.ico. Yeah, okay. That's because I both have it in here as in the shared SPA project. That's not really. It's probably, yeah, both in this Leisure website project as in the both in the server as in the client. It's nothing to do with the shared project. So let's put this one back because it makes more sense to have it in the client project. We can probably delete all of those, but let's just copy them over maybe. Let's see which one. Oh, that's just the default one. I'm going to copy those over. That's probably gonna give me trouble on here. No, it's this one, bottom one. Let's just comment it out for now to avoid trouble. Anything else? Nope. Then delete this icon. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Probably shouldn't have a www written here anyway, but okay. Let's rebuild them again and hopefully run them. So now this SPA project is not actually runnable because it doesn't really have an index.html. It doesn't have the Blazor JavaScript that it needs to actually do everything. So it's depending, can only be run by the server, should only. We can, that's another thing I wanted to say. We can debug this backend project, but that's not going to do us much good since most of the actual functionality will happen in here on the client-side project, and we cannot debug, or as far as I know, we cannot really put breakpoints or anything since these are client-side projects. Yeah, I still have to drop all of this code into components. Anyway, you can't really debug. We can do consulted write lines to see them then in the browser console and so forth. I'm curious what it's going to give me for debugging. I also really wonder, okay, not bad. We do get this error. This is something to do probably with HTTP calls or maybe some JavaScripts or stuff like that. Let's have a look. Ooh, 606. Okay. Unknown error occurred while trying to verify integrity. We might also want to protect this server project with course settings and stuff like that. But not everyone can just spam it. Or, yeah, whatever. Integrity. Wow, okay. We'll fix that later. Most important thing now is I want to see whether whether this stuff is pre-rendered or not, since this is now a client, Blazor WebAssembly client project, which in the past gave me horrible SEO. And it looks like we see all the content and we see those lovely pre-render tags for the head content, so our metadata, and for our app. And you see the type this time is WebAssembly instead of server or whatever. That is very, very, very nice. So this would finally put a rest to our SEO troubles. But it's going to give us some extra, maybe some extra deployment concerns, and costs. Anyway, let's do the SEO test. First off, I'm going to try to access I don't think this is going to work yet since I actually want to see a detailed page. Okay, I have to have my API running. Second, for this HTTP call, running my API as well. My lovely API. And now let's see. So actually, what I would want is if I go to the event page, that it should be pre-rendered. It's probably erroring due to HTTP calls or something. Jesus. Oops, I didn't have my database running. Then that's not gonna work. Let's see. Rerun the API to get my data. There we are again, and let's go to events. And they loaded, which is already pretty good. Let's now check out the page source. Not everything is working as I would want. This should open and show me the events. But the most important part is all the events are in the page source, which is awesome. And this is on navigating to another page, so so it's going to pre-render every time I navigate, I assume, like it did in the Blazor server, which is great. These are the parks. I can also not open them. This means Blazor WebAssembly components aren't really doing okay, but at the moment, let's view the page source and I see all the parks. They have hidden tags right now, but you see the hrefs and all the good stuff. So this is going to be pretty good for SEO. But actually, I would like to do the SEO tests on that specific one. Oops. Looks good. And we also get the pre-rendering of this. which is awesome. So now if I were to use my, I don't really know which metadata tags I put there. It seems like I have none. I'll still have to add those. So I'm quickly gonna add some, what was it, event detail. I don't have any metadata tags. Let's have a look in a event detail, just like that. Event service. Event service. Anything else? Nope, it doesn't look like. Why is this in a container? Metadata tags, let's see if we can have those. Put it in the imports. Let's rerun that one. No. Shouldn't be a runnable project. Maybe we should remove these launch settings. Sorry, we have to rerun that one. Sorry, no, that's the API. I'm messing up. Let's see. I hope it rebuilds and all that stuff. Okay, so we go to events. Does take a long time to load, maybe because of the errors. Let's go to the page source and let's just pick a. Actually, we were on the parks before. Let's see about that. So we have this one, and now I want to use ngrok for the tunnel to expose the terminal actually to expose this URL publicly. Using the ngrok tool, you have to install it. Okay, it's already there. So the ngrok, it's a tool you have to install, and then the protocol over HTTP, and then the HTTPS, the local host's URL you want to publicly expose. Then it's going to create publicly accessible links. It's probably going to give a lot of errors as well. But anyway, we want this. Let's see. So we should do /that to get the event. Gonna close that. Let's view the page source again. Everything's there. The metadata tags are here as well, which is awesome. Which means now if we would paste this, share this over Facebook or another social media platform, that we should actually see a decent thumbnail. Let's try it. So if we now paste this link, view source is not what I wanted. Messing up. Come on. Why need this link? And it shows us the title, no description I see, probably because the description is too long. And this image is our thumbnail image. It would be nicer, of course, if we had an actual image. And then this is the URL, which should be, yeah, when it's live, a clear domain name. Let's see about that description. Yeah, it's way too long. Probably have to cap that to 75 characters or something. But that looks a lot better, and it's still a client-side app with pre-rendering. The final test would be, can we download this as a progressive web app? Let's try that by simply pasting in some existing manifest files, and I'm thinking about the service worker as well. I don't know how, if I have to put that in the background, in the server project or in the front end, since we don't have an index.html anymore. That's kind of annoying. Let's stop our tunnel for now. We've proven the point about sharing on social media. And let's try to convert it into a installable progressive web app. To do that, you'd need the manifest file, the routes, I don't know, but the service worker is important, I think. Although, does it do anything on develop? Not really. Let's maybe start with the manifest file. But this is added as link. So that's kind of a problem, right? Although so in the example, the server shouldn't have a www root. So I'm going to put it in the client project, a manifest file. I copied this over from an already working one. I have a video about all of this. Feel free to watch that. What else do we need? Probably a service worker, and probably we need to add that to the host or the layout.cshtml. That might be why we have this. Let's see what it gives by just rerunning this. Rebuilding maybe, since we added static files. Tells me no manifest detected. Let's see what happens if we put it here. Of course, this is in the client project. I don't know about the reference. Maybe it's just going to detect this as being the root. Yeah, it's going to be accessible, who knows. So yeah, it did detect our manifest file. There's no service workers. I wonder if I can install it. Let's copy over to service workers. Did I? Right. Oh, yeah, I was just checking from which app. Just copying them. The service workers are the same for most. Anyway, copy, and then I put this also in the client project. Since this is going to be seen as the root folder, the only, yeah, just going to be mapped to the base URL. Don't have to do anything specific to make this work. Let's rerun it, the server project. Is this supposed to show anything else? Let me check with a real application. A live. Let's compare. Yeah, this says a lot more running and all that stuff. It's not giving me much. Let's see. It's not giving me the install option. I'm gonna run a Blazor WebAssembly app, progressive web app, and then it shows me the install button instantly. Let's see what application says in here. It's activated and running, blah 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 blah. Doesn't seem to be the case in here. Of course, stupid me. I didn't add them to the host.html. I mean the layout.html. Let's have a look. A bit like this. Navigator.serviceworker.register. So what has to happen after the Blazor WebAssembly. Then again, we don't have an index in there, so we have to do it in the pages layout. At the bottom, under Blazor WebAssembly, register that, and let's have another go. We can, I think we can use this one as well. But it's going to give us trouble since this is trying to load the jQuery in a pre-rendered environment, which is not going to be too great, I think, unless we already solved that problem by taking on the Blazor Server project, by solving it in the Blazor Server project. Let's see which. Aha, we get the button to install. This is nice. I'll fix those 600 issues later. So we have the service worker and we have an installable application. Let's install it. And let's see. Yeah, this is not mobile first designed. It's actually not, it's just to try, of course. I'm not actually going to make this one as a progressive web app, but I just wanted to see if it was possible. Now what happens if I refresh? Wow, okay, not even any loading. So it seems like, since we're connected, of course, to the internet, that the pre-rendering happens anyway. So we'll still have to see what And the jQuery is working as well. So you see the carousels moving. So we already fixed that. That's awesome. I would assume, however, if we want to start having offline functionality in on an installed app, like an app installed on someone's mobile device, not having internet connection, that we would see the loading screens since it's not going to be pre-rendered, I assume. And I don't know how many issues that might give us if we can, in those cases, turn off the pre-rendering or something. Okay. Doesn't seem to be finding a lot of DLLs either. Maybe that's just because of the app. I'm gonna remove it again. Some DLLs it's not finding. And then there was another issue. They said, let's just check out the network. They said it's possible that everything happens twice, since it happens once for re-rendering and then another time when the actual Blazor WebAssembly app kicks in. So that would, let's see, only the fetch ones. A lot of things I have to fix, packages and all those. Let's see about I wanted to see the actual event calls. Or is that, let's see. Event call happened. Oh no, that's just a route. Where is the HTTP call, I wonder? This all just seems fine. Maybe the HTTP call happens by the server or something. Not seeing anything that do it to the API. It did call to the API. Let's have a quick look at the component because I have a different approach. I try to avoid using the initialize to do HTTP calls, since that kind of halts the loading of the page a bit, especially if most of the page is depending on, or the page is partially depending on the results of the HTTP call. Let's have a look in event detail. I think I don't use the, I do. That's the event detail. So they say this could happen twice by the pre-rendering and another time. Let's see. Here I do it on parameter set async. And that's for the reason I just explained. I don't like to use the initialized actually. I did make a mistake in here, I see. I guess it's different when the whole page is depending on like a detail event. This is the detail of the event page. So everything in this page, you see the page is not going to show anything anyway if there's no event data. That's different for the grouped events. of course, that's only going to, yeah, okay, you could show the title already for this component. But the reason I did that is because for this app, or the reason I started doing that anyway, is for this application, if we go to the breed or the shelter, let's see, let's go to the shelter. We see this whole page, and then we see, and then only then these dogs load. Not only then, but with these, it's not like loading these things should wait for these dogs at the bottom to load or anything. So that's why I kind of like loading, doing HTTP calls not in the initialized. Did I circumvent the double HTTP calls by doing that? I'm not sure. Something I'll have to find out. Maybe I can check it real quick. Let's see what happens when I refresh. Or maybe that's just an old issue, but I don't think so because they advise to persist the state between. So this is the call happening, if I'm not mistaken. Get. But is this just a page or to the API? I'm not seeing that. We'll definitely have to dive into that together with fixing all of these errors, which are just a few actually, just one that keeps spamming me. And then some others like the DLLs, and then some actual failed to fetch. Okay, cool. I think I'm gonna leave it at that. I think I answered all my own questions. Which I could more or less find in others' videos, but it wasn't clear for my use case. So for my use case, for this website in specific, a Blazor server would have done the trick, but I want to transform all my I want to transform all my other PWAs also to have better SEO. So this one. So that's why I transformed this Blazor server project into a pre-rendered Blazor WebAssembly project, and I'm quite happy about the results of the SEO, since that's the whole point. Some other questions I'll have to answer is, find out, I mean, is can I have one server project to host multiple front-end projects? I'm guessing it's going to be tricky due to these head outlets and app. That's going to be the same. Yeah, going to have something specific. So we'll see, yeah, specific per namespace for different apps. So we'll see how to do that if it's not too complicated. But I think it's going to be quite some work. Okay, see you hopefully in the next video. This video was way longer than I anticipated, like usual. See you.